bird's nest fern. It will thrive in bright to medium indirect light, but also can endure lower indirect lighting, doesn't like direct sunlight, and prefers partial to complete shade. They are often cultivated for their crinkled leaves, and the amount of light they receive affect how crinkled the leaves will be. More light makes more crinkles, while less light will result in flatter leaves. Too much direct light will make the leaves turn yellow and die. Consistent medium light levels throughout the day are necessary for the plant to do well. Water the plant once or twice every 2 weeks, letting the soil get dry between watering. It needs more water under bright light and a smaller amount in lower lighting conditions. Water around the fern rather than in the center. Usually ferns prefer damp but not waterlogged soil. Ferns usually fail to thrive indoors because they are either over or underwatered. Just ensure that you keep the soil damp in the warmer months without waterlogging. Water it less in winter as the water around the roots will boost rotting. It can tolerate average indoor humidity levels but prefers higher humidity. They're particularly good to be grown in bathrooms or kitchens because these locations usually have a more humid atmosphere. It would do well in an average home temperatures of 65 to 75 degrees Fahrenheit with a low of 50, as this is a plant that will struggle in a very warm room. It grows best in a well-draining soil, as sufficient drainage is important to avoid root rot. This fern isn't poisonous, but keeping out of reach from children and pets is recommended. It must be repotted in a slightly bigger container when the fern becomes root-bound. Normally, young plants have to be repotted each year until attaining maturity. Repot once in 2 years after that. This plant will still grow well in smaller pots, so there's no necessity to repot into a larger pot every time. Just water it more often as smaller pots store less water. Gently loosen the roots if they are very compressed. When you're planting it into a new pot, make sure that the crown is not covered with soil. Ferns are propagated through spores, and it's quite difficult to successfully propagate ferns without specialized equipment, simply by a new plant. The fern should be fed with diluted fertilizer at least 2 times a year in warmer months. Over-fertilization will result in brown or yellow spotting on the leaves. While it's not very demanding, leaves will look dull and growth will slow down if you don't feed it over a long period. If you are properly taking care of the fern, growth will be fairly regular and fast during the warmer months, with new leaves constantly emerging from the rosette. Be careful not to touch the fragile young fronds as they emerge because of how delicate they are, as it will result in damage or deformation. Ferns dislike chemicals, so never use leaf shine to prevent any issues. While the leaves are glossy, dust will make them look dull. Simply clean the leaves with a damp cloth. Growth will be slowed down if the plant gets root-bound or if the temperature stays below 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Repot the plant with fresh soil and ensure the temperature stays above 50. Luckily, the plant is not very prone to any severe diseases or pests, but they can be affected by a scale that appears as brown spots on the fronds. This can be misleading as the spores are also brown. A healthy plant can help prevent diseases or pest infestations, so make sure your fern has proper lighting, enough nutrients, and proper watering. Regularly inspect the fronds to ensure no pests are hiding somewhere. Brown tips on the fronds are due to either low humidity or dry soil. Sometimes it could also indicate overwatering. Soil must be moist but not very dry or very wet. If the end of the fronds begin to turn yellow, this is possibly due to aging. If the front's base is becoming yellow, then it's probably due to the temperature being too high. Look for a cooler place for the fern to live. Other causes might be from using cold water. Lighter green leaves and dry soil are a sign that the plant is thirsty and underwater. Lower leaves turning yellow and wet potting mix are an indication of either excessive light or overwatering. Brown or crispy leaves indicate that the plant is underwater or if it's living in low humid conditions. Increasing humidity or mist the fern more often.